Hello's my YouTube family. There are stories that never made it to the news. Whispers buried deep and where no light reaches. Secrets too dark for the world to believe. I search the blackest corners of the internet and far beyond to bring you the truth they tried so hard to erase. Tales that were deleted, covered up, abandoned in digital shadows. But fear remembers everything. These are not just stories. They're warnings. And if you're still watching, if you're still here, it's already too late. Welcome to Fears, and now let the horror begin.
I was 16 when it happened. Riding home from school on a route that usually took 30 minutes through the pine-scented back roads of Flagstaff. That day I had stayed behind for a club meeting and caught the last bus, almost empty except for a couple of quiet kids and the driver, an older man I hadn't seen before. He wore a faded brown cap, and his sun-damaged skin looked stretched tight over his skull. He smiled at me with yellowed teeth as I climbed aboard, a smile that felt wrong. Something about his eyes. They didn't blink enough. The further we drove, the more uneasy I felt. The trees looked darker, even though the sun hadn't fully set. One by one, the other kids got off until it was just me and him. My stop came, but he didn't slow down. "Sir, this is my stop," I said, trying not to sound nervous. No response. I repeated myself louder. Still nothing. Finally, he glanced at me through the rearview mirror. His eyes were wide, unblinking. "You're gonna see something special tonight," he said calmly, like it was a promise. My heart jumped into my throat. I reached for my phone, but I had no signal. Not a single bar. I stood up, but he suddenly swerved the bus off the road and into a narrow dirt path I had never seen before. The wheels bounced and crunched over rocks and dead branches. I gripped the seat, trying to keep balance. "I don't want to see anything," I whispered, more to myself than to him. The bus came to a stop in the middle of a forest clearing. No houses, no light, just trees, and that awful silence. The driver stood up slowly, walking down the aisle toward me. His movements were jerky, stiff like he was fighting his own limbs. "She said you'd be the last one," he muttered. I bolted, slamming open the emergency exit and running blindly into the woods. Behind me, I heard him groaning, whispering words that sounded like another language. Twigs snapped under my feet. Branches clawed at my arms, but I didn't stop. I found a narrow trail and followed it, praying it led somewhere. After what felt like forever, I stumbled onto a roadside gas station, breathless and scratched to hell. The clerk called the cops. They searched the woods, but the bus was gone, completely vanished. No tracks, no signs, just that open clearing. They asked which driver was on duty. When I described him, their faces dropped. There hasn't been an older man on that route in years, one officer told me. "You sure he wasn't wearing a cap?" My blood turned to ice. "Yeah. Why?" "Because you just described Jerry Parker. He drove that route in the 90s, went missing along with a bus full of kids, and was never found." It was a warm, humid night in Charleston. I was cycling back home from a friend's place. The kind of night where the air feels thick and heavy, almost like it's pressing down on you. The street was unusually quiet, with not a single car in sight. Only the distant hum of the streetlights filled the silence. As I pedaled down one of the older cobblestone streets, I passed beneath a street lamp that flickered a few times before steadying. At first, I thought I was imagining it, but then I saw something that froze me in place. A figure. No, a man. Was hanging upside down from the light pole, his arms wrapped tightly around the metal, his body limp and twisted in unnatural angles. He wasn't moving, His face, pale and sickly, stared down at me with eyes that glowed an eerie yellow. There was no blink, no movement, just that cold, lifeless stare. It felt as if his gaze was piercing straight through me, into my very soul. Couldn't look away. My body refused to move, my heart hammering in my chest, each beat growing louder than the next. His mouth was slightly open, as if waiting for something, or someone. I wasn't sure, but the silence around me felt wrong. Too heavy. Then, as if some unseen force had decided I had seen enough, the streetlight above me flickered, and then went out completely, plunging everything into darkness. The silence grew, suffocating, and I tried to move, but my legs felt frozen. I felt his presence more than I saw him. I could still hear his breathing, shallow and slow. But when the light flickered back on, I blinked in confusion. He was gone. Wasted no time. I grabbed my bike and started pedaling away, my mind racing with disbelief. I turned a corner, hoping to escape the eerie feeling that clung to me like a second skin. But then, I saw him again. He was hanging from another light pole, much closer now. His arms were bent, the shadows from the street lamp casting long, twisted shapes on the ground below. The eerie yellow glow of his eyes locked onto mine again, and my blood ran cold. He was waiting for me. I turned and pedaled faster, my chest tightening, my breath quickening. But as I looked over my shoulder, I saw him move, slowly, jerkingly, like his limbs weren't meant to bend that way. I couldn't look anymore. I didn't dare. I just kept riding, my heart pounding in my throat. I finally reached my house, bursting through the door and slamming it shut behind me, locking every lock. But even as I stood there, catching my breath, I couldn't shake the feeling that someone, was still out there, watching from the darkness, waiting for the right moment to come back. I never biked at night again. It was supposed to be a routine visit, nothing out of the ordinary. My eyes had been bothering me for a while, so I made an appointment with an eye doctor in Richmond, a small practice tucked away in an old building near the edge of town. The office was dimly lit, with a stale, almost suffocating air. I checked in and sat down, flipping through a magazine, the hum of fluorescent lights buzzing overhead. After a short wait, a nurse called me into the examination room. The doctor, a middle-aged man with graying hair and thick glasses, introduced himself. His handshake was cold, almost too firm. I shrugged it off. Some people were just like that. He asked me to sit in the examination chair and proceeded with the usual tests. The air in the room was stale, and something felt wrong. But I couldn't put my finger on it. As he looked into my eyes with his bright light, I noticed his gaze lingered a little too long, his fingers slightly trembling as they touched my eyelid. His voice was soft but cold, asking me questions that seemed oddly personal for a routine exam. "Do you sleep well at night?" he asked, his eyes not leaving mine. "Yeah, I guess," I replied, uneasy. "Have you ever had trouble seeing things that aren't really there?" His voice seemed to lower, a cold edge creeping in. I froze. The question caught me off guard, and for a split second I felt an overwhelming chill in the room. I laughed nervously, trying to dismiss the unsettling vibe. "No, nothing like that," I said. But his eyes remained locked on mine, his expression unreadable. The room seemed to grow colder. The fluorescent light above flickered, casting unsettling shadows on the walls. For some reason, I couldn't look away from him. His gaze was deep, like he was searching for something inside me, something I couldn't see. Then came the moment that still haunts me. After finishing the exam, he told me to sit tight while he reviewed my results. I was alone in the room for what felt like an eternity. Then the door creaked open, and he stepped back in, holding a clipboard. His smile was strange, too wide, too forced. "You're fine," he said, his voice oddly cheerful. "But I'd like to ask you to come back in a few days for another checkup, just to be sure." He handed me a business card, his fingers brushing against mine a little too slowly. Something in my gut told me I had to leave. I thanked him quickly and left the office, the strange feeling lingering long after I stepped outside. A few days later, I checked the appointment card. The office was empty. There were no follow-up calls, no emails. I tried to search the address online, but the office didn't exist anymore. Even stranger, when I went back to the building where I had visited, it had been abandoned for years. The whole practice was gone. But the most chilling part, the business card was completely blank on the back except for one line scrawled in dark ink. "I'm always watching."
What you just heard, Han, was more than a story. It was a glimpse into what waits in the dark. Some truths should never be found, but now that you've heard them, they're coming closer. Subscribe while you still can. This was Fears. Until next time, keep your lights on.